Hey there, everybody. SpaceWIndu here. I hope you will watch the original Star Wars with me right now. I'm going to start it. I'm going to show you where I'm going to start it via the Lucasfilm screen, and that's where you can unpause as well if you'd like to watch along with me. Don't let this be the very first time you're going to watch Star Wars. If you haven't seen Star Wars yet, go watch it first and then come back and check out this video where I'm going to do my own commentary on a movie that I've watched probably 100 times. So if you haven't seen it before, please go watch it. This is the original version where it's not the special edition. Okay, so I'm going to have a little bit of the image on my screen, but you're not going to hear any sound. What you're going to need to do is find the original version and unpause it at this same time as me, and we'll be able to watch it together. If you are watching the special edition, it's just going to end up being a little longer because there's some extra scenes in the special edition that make the movie a bit longer. So I prefer for episodes 4, 5, and 6 to watch the original versions without any hands in it to change the experience. So this is the original movie that George Lucas intended. I'm going to unpause it right now and we'll get started. So they are over Tatooine right now. I really wonder if Vader has any feeling about that. Has any feeling at all about that? Being literally just like a couple hundred miles over Tatooine. Couple, I don't know, a couple hundred miles. See, I think it's quite obvious, even in these first scenes, how important the music is to this story. It's an incredible 50%, I would say. You really can't do this without the music. Now, so this version that I'm watching is without any type of auditory or visual additions. This is just what was shown in the theater. That's why there was no title for episode 4, because this was simply called Star Wars when this started. This was a DVD I got probably 15 or 20 years ago, but you could get these on Blu-ray, I believe, now. So I thought it was a great time to see if anybody else could maybe watch along on these original versions. We could have fun talking about our opinions. Most of what I'm going to say is my opinions. I don't have any special insight into the filming or anything like that. That line, "There will be no one to stop us, stop us this time," kind of alludes to previous times where they had to deal with the rebels. It always surprised me after watching the special editions so many times and then going back to watch these original ones without any changes, how much there was actually still there. Um, it didn't really need the changes. That's my opinion. There's certain times in the next movie, Empire Strikes Back, that the changes actually hurt certain things, and I'll explain that. That's one of the reasons why I'm watching the original versions, is because I want to kind of go over what the changes were and how maybe they weren't necessary for the special editions, and then more changes were made when the Blu-rays came out a few years ago, and additions were made in the Blu-rays, such as at the end of Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader yelling "No" when Luke Skywalker is in danger from the Emperor, and that didn't happen in the originals. Got that great bone structure in the background, the glint of the sandcrawler. I always thought the beginning of this movie was a little bit slow when I was a kid, but now I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like it really moves along. I always felt like these desert scenes on Tatooine were very slow, but I feel like they all really have a purpose. Like every bit of this movie, every edit has a purpose. Those rocks falling are to let you know that there's somebody behind the rock, and R2 knows it too. It's like every scene seems to have a purpose. Every shot. I remember a really difficult portion to one of the video games that involved these Jawas in this part of the movie, where I think you were Luke Skywalker, one of these old video games on a Super Nintendo. This part, I think, was difficult. Everything so far just gives you a great impression of this foreign place, this like weird world. Like even so much as the bad guys wearing white for the most part. The stormtroopers wearing white was always confusing to me as a kid. I thought, why would the bad guys wear white? I thought the good guys wore white, like in the cowboy movies and the different things. I mean, except for things like Zorro, and he wore all black. But I just thought that the good guys wore white. That was a little confusing to me when I saw the bad guys wore white. And so far, all the effects here, what are we, about 12 minutes into the movie? All the effects are just great so far. I don't see anything that I would have changed. I know there's a scene coming up with the speeder. The speeder that Luke drives looks like there's Vaseline that they smeared underneath the speeder. You'll be able to see that if you're watching the original version. There were things like that were necessary, maybe, to alter if you could, but altering things can get out of control sometimes. I think people are going to find that out when they start messing with all of our beloved movies. Basically, if you don't own the DVD or you don't own the Blu-ray, you're going to be watching a different thing. They're changing stuff all the time. I just heard today, in fact, that they revised Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi to be less revealing, her outfit. That scene was totally effective, but that was one of the scenes that was enhanced for the special edition to include more seconds and more things walking by in that stormtrooper scene. But you got the point there when he held up the droid part and he said, "Look, sir, droids." That's what you needed there. R2 looks great there. Those little lights that he's got in there looks fantastic. There's a sufficient amount of dirt on everything on 3PO. It makes sense later when he goes for the oil bath or when he wants an oil bath. You know, as a kid, maybe I just had to wait a really long time to get to the Jedi parts. That's probably what I was thinking when I thought it was kind of slow going in the beginning. But so far, every shot to me is dynamic. Even the first time you see Luke and he's being called, it just makes sense for an introduction. It really works. Uh, you know, in the sequel trilogy in the Disney movies, everyone's got to say, you know, "Hi, my name is such and such. My name, hey, what's your name? My name is." They find a little bit clever ways to do it in the movies, in the older movies. It's like he's got the two most important characters in all of Star Wars here, C-3PO and R2-D2, the droids, probably the most important characters. I mean, the amount of information being passed around here every second it's almost like an action scene, but it's just a shopping scene. And it's like, what made that droid blow up or explode? Was it fate? Was it the Force? Because R2 has to go with him here. It must have been the Force, right? Luke's got a pretty sweet holster on his belt, like a box-like holster. There's a real characterization to Luke here that shows that he's kind to even these robots who aren't really supposed to have feelings, probably. Like in a few minutes when they try to go into the bar and the guy from the bar doesn't want droids in the bar. You could tell Luke even has a respect for these droids. A certain level of respect that I think is higher than other people in the world. It's like a necessary glitch. Look at these shots. These shots are unbelievably perfect. There was some portions of the holographic interpretation of Leia that were updated in the new version, and the whole image itself of the film was cleaned up. So I think if you guys get the new DVD, the new Blu-ray that contains this, I heard that it is updated and cleaned up to Blu-ray quality, but I don't know. I only have these DVDs from years ago, and the way it displays on these TVs now is like smaller than it should be because of the resolution so low. But still, I'm happy to watch this copy. There's certain things that Darth Vader says to the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back that totally changed the story in the special editions, in the new version that's like, let's say on Disney Plus. That's a different dialogue than what we have here in these original movies. So I'll explain that when we do the next video and I watch The Empire Strikes Back with you. I'll tell you where it's different, but you'll be able to tell as well if you have both versions. If you watch the special edition at some point, like I did in 1997, I went back to the movies and I watched the special edition with my friends, and I saw these updates, happen in real time. And I always preferred the originals, even though it was very exciting to go back to the movies to see Star Wars. Believe me, 1997, that was a lot of fun. Like revitalized it. I never really saw Luke as the hero when I was a kid. First watching this movie, I didn't see him as the hero. I saw like Han Solo maybe as the emerging hero. He looked more heroic to me. I thought Luke was too young or something. To me, too much like a kid. They did a great job making him look like a kid, right? It's also like they seem to pull no punches. Back in 1976, 1977, when they're making this movie, here's the most epic scene in all of Star Wars right here. The binary sunset with that perfect tune. The music, just displays that hope or that future that could be, but it doesn't seem to him that it'll happen. Nothing exciting will happen. I always love this binocular effect. No matter how rudimentary, it's fantastic. You know, 3PO isn't the only thing that's gold here. This entire movie's gold. Every second so far has been necessary and perfect, in my opinion. You won't see me be too critical of like these movies, episode 4, 5, and 6, but then some of the other ones might be more critical. Feel free to disagree, to have your own opinions. It's all in good fun. This is our hobby. This is what we like. So, oh, you know what? I'm looking at this scene right now, and it doesn't look that bad to me. It doesn't even look that bad with the speeder car. It doesn't even look that bad. This looks great. The bantha looks real. This didn't need any additions. This is great. Yeah, the hover car looks great. The way it's hovering. Colors look spot on. Now, how scary must this be? He probably knows the story of his grandmother dying at the hands of the Sand People. Wouldn't they tell him as a warning story? Like, listen, don't wander out at night. Don't wander out by the Sand People. Your grandmother died this way, right? I mean, doesn't sound like Uncle Owen said too much to Luke, but I'm thinking they must have said that. I know these sounds were changed in the that Obi-Wan makes here to scare away the Sand People. that sound was changed in the special edition, but it is perfectly legitimate here in this version. I don't know why that would have to be changed. It's almost like Alec Guinness doesn't even look that old as I remembered in this scene. He does literally look like he's 60s, which would line up with what we saw in the prequels. Now, obviously, this is going to lead to one of the greatest moments in cinema, when Luke Skywalker gets his lightsaber. You could tell he hasn't heard this name. A lot of stuff that they're trying to do right now with the Obi-Wan character could betray this fact here. He shouldn't have dealt with the name Obi-Wan in 19 or 20 years at this point. So said even before Luke was born. So there would leave no time for Darth Maul encounters or silly things like that that we've seen in other peripheral Star Wars stuff since this movie. You know, the simple costumes up against the technological droid characters and the other hardline surfaces of the ships and such. It's just really striking how that seems to really work. Yeah, that good friend stuff, I really feel like we did not ever see that in the movies. Good friend, the good friendship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, I'm not sure we ever really saw that. I thought we were going to get more of that when I heard about the prequels coming out. It's one of the greatest descriptions we would ever need of the Force. Not much more needed to be said. Yeah, I guess calling him General Kenobi kind of impressed Luke. But just not enough for him to go with them. The music note coming up is just fantastic right there. I just love that. That's emotional. Some of the ship animations get a little wonky, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted to do the special editions. Like you'll see later when you watch the original version, the battle at the end, the TIE fighters are actually encased in these transparent boxes, and the boxes follow the ship, and it was just a remnant of something that they used to animate the TIE fighters originally, and they had to go back and clean that up at the special editions. But it's just one of those things that if you could use your imagination, suspend your disbelief, and just ignore that type of stuff. I haven't seen anything yet that is like that TIE fighter, those TIE fighter boxes. Exactly. Everything looks great to me. Everything looks clean in the original. This is the next greatest revelation in the Force that we've had so far in this movie, and this time it's by Darth Vader. We actually get to see it in action, don't we? Like it's not just something they talk about, it's something that he could physically use. And we assume, I guess if you have to think about it, you assume if you're seeing this for the first time, you might think that, well, if he could do it, I wonder if if Obi-Wan can do it, if the good guy can do it, who uses the Force, or would he use it that way? If Darth Vader can touch him without touching him, what could Obi-Wan do? What would Obi-Wan do? We get to see that. Obi-Wan giving some of his military expertise. He understands this stuff. This is where things, I think if this movie was made today, in 2020 or beyond, we would not see what we see next, which is the burnt up skeletons of Luke's family. So let's see right here. I think there was a Vaseline issue underneath the speeder. Let's see if we see that. You know what? That's not. I don't know. No, that's not bad at all. No, that's not worth changing. That was fine. We got the homestead. It's burning. It's on fire. All of the farm equipment is on fire. And you get a pretty clear picture of his aunt and uncle, who we just met. Like some of the aunt is like some of the nicest people you could meet. Look. And at least so far, even in the new versions, look at this. You even see some blood. This is terrible. Almost like they crawled out on fire. Pretty horrific scene. Pretty horrific scene for a supposed children's sci-fi movie, right? Right there, I saw some TIE fighters. I did not see any transparent boxes around them. That looked good. This is a quick scene of them interrogating Princess Leia. This actually works out very, very effectively. Nobody likes needles, and we got this perfectly round droid coming in here with the longest needle that is a scary type of needle. I still don't see any problem with the speeder. That approach looked good. This stuff looks good. So far, they put the droids to work. Obi-Wan put the droids to work burning the Jawas, because I guess that's the thing to do here. We cremate them. Look how proud Obi-Wan is right here. Here's another speeder bike scene. They hid the bottom of it pretty well. This is the same scene we see in the expanded version, but this is a little bit enhanced in the new version, but it's not worth it. It looks fantastic here. It looks fantastic. That looked okay. That looked okay, actually. A lot of this stuff is surprising that it's actually here in the original version. Like, look at all these stormtroopers and droids walking by. They actually put some dewbacks. Some people think that yellow droid is not original. The yellow droid is original to the screen, original 1977 version. And to be honest, the dewbacks and the stormtroopers that they had walking in front of the camera there as a so-called enhancement in the new version looked fake and CGI. It didn't even look good. This at least is real. Okay, there I could see, but to me it looks like that underneath their sort of jet-based sports car was an exhaust. I took it as an exhaust. It didn't look awful to me underneath the speeder. The way they have R2 on the car is odd too. They have him like tied to the top of the car. See Obi-Wan's outfit here, I believe the original intention for this outfit is a desert hermit outfit. This is a outfit of somebody who's undercover, of somebody who's trying to hide in the desert. This isn't necessarily a Jedi outfit. When you go hiding, you don't wear, like if you're undercover as a police officer, you don't wear your police officer uniform. We have our famous theme here of the bar. Mos Eisley, Cantina. those guys that were playing those instruments, they were called Bith. And look at all the stuff that they have built in. They've got these humanoid twins. They've got all these things built into the walls over here. They've got lots of different aliens. They've got more aliens in this cantina bar than in the whole Disney trilogy. This is great. They've really filled this place up with aliens. And this is back when they only had less than $5 million to make this movie. Yeah, the cleverness is in the story. There's an Ethorian. They use them heavily in the Knights of the Old Republic video game. Here we get our first view of Chewie and these weirdos that we also catch later in or earlier in Rogue One. You know, that wound wasn't cauterized like it probably would be cauterized, but I like the fact that there was blood there, and I think that was very realistic how that went down. I like how Chewie is very calm and Obi-Wan's very nonchalant about it. Like that was nothing to them, and everyone else at the bar doesn't really seem to care too much. You've got some, you know, some snitches and some rats out there. You'll see one of them all dressed in black. That is the biggest rat in town. But first we're going to meet Han Solo. This is, I thought, where we're meeting the hero. I mean, he was a hero, but I thought he was the main hero when I met Han Solo. I was like, oh, Han Solo's the main dude. Han Solo has no idea what he's getting into right now. I think Obi-Wan knows that they're in this kind of hurry. They don't have time to buy a new ship. Not to mention they're going to need some assistance. I think Obi-Wan can feel it in the Force that these guys need to do the job. See, Obi-Wan's hiding in that outfit. That's not a Jedi outfit, but somehow that was forgotten and made into a Jedi outfit. Now, since we're watching the original version, we are actually going to be able to see Han shoot first. He doesn't allow somebody to get over on him, especially a slimy Rhodian like Greedo. He's going to unsnap his gun right here, and believe me, he is going to fire first. You'll see it in the untouched version, because the guy threatens him. I mean, when Han says "over my dead body" right now, and that guy says that's the idea, that's a threat. That's a threat. Here it goes. Here it goes. That's a threat. One shot went off. One person went down. That's it. There was no dodging. There's no dodging at the table. That's ridiculous. So we've got Han Solo. He just took care of that. What I consider a bad guy. Somebody who was going to step over Han's dead body. No, we don't like that. So yeah. Now in the expanded universe, they have names for all those Imperial admirals and officers, and they all have a history. If you guys check out the expanded universe books, there's different storylines for actually all those guys and how they ended up at the Death Star. Look how many characters are on screen right now, how many figures. It's really cool to see these different droids, these Ralph McQuarrie designs. I really like to go over, oh, here's the rat right here, following them. I'd really like to go over the Ralph McQuarrie book in a video or in a series of videos. It's really, really neat to see the original artwork that led to the original Star Wars. You really get a sense of the feeling here. I know of the space. I know in the Harry Potter movies, they say that certain Harry Potter movies are actually better at showing the Hogwarts castle than other movies, and showing the spatial awareness in the castle and what is near what. This movie here, I really feel like we're in this space. We're in the spatial habitat that they've set up here. You know, you could tell that it's a desert planet. You could tell by the structures and how the bar was halfway underground to be cooler, and you can kind of see the logic in all this stuff. These guys here with the big backpacks, they must have bigger weapons, right? They've got some kind of high-powered weapons. And I kind of bring up interiors, and look at that shot. That's great. I bring up the interior because I actually really like certain moving scenes of the Millennium Falcon interior. It's really interesting, especially during the lightsaber scene in the Millennium Falcon coming up. But this looks like flying to me. I don't see any problems here. I love the upside down view at Tatooine. That really makes a lot of sense to me. It's fantastic, fast dialogue here. See, that's one time where Lightspeed actually works as promised and they make that clean getaway. It doesn't always happen to them where they have their Lightspeed. The vastness of the Imperial ships is always featured in the Imperial interiors. There's a whole book on Tarkin called Tarkin. It shows you what he did to become governor and what he did to get to this point. Dantooine is a planet that you can visit in a Knights of the Old Republic video game. It's actually an old Jedi hideout in ancient times. Weirdest helmets on these guys, right? It really shows you how otherworldly this is. It's just another reinforcement of that. And the fact that they blow up this planet right here is just ridiculous. It makes an impact in this movie, doesn't it? And look at this scene right here in the inside of the Falcon. It's so dynamic, just having a static scene when you have all those hallways and entrances and exits that are visible within one shot. As the camera moves around, you can see the different figures moving in and out of the scene. It's a really dynamic setup. Holographic chest looks great in this version. No reason to change that at all. That was updated, but in the new version, but this just looks so cool. Looks perfect. Maybe when they updated the resolution for the special editions or for the HD, they had to do certain CGI changes because of the resolution. That's possible. I love the different looks of the lightsaber and the different scenes. In this scene right here, it's got that faint blue aura, but for the most part, it's white. And it just barely looks blue. It's the most beautiful version of the color in that scene. But in certain scenes, Luke's saber, it looks a little sicklier. It doesn't look as crisp. And I just love the way that they did those effects for the lightsaber. So you've got the background of the Millennium Falcon, round doorways, beautifully encasing Obi-Wan in a frame. All the tech looks like it does something. It doesn't look like just goofy screens and buttons. It really looks like it does something. Somebody has thought about how to set that up. And you know, the bad guys here have such a more streamlined spaceship. The way they show it looks inside hyperspace looks pretty wild. All that shown in the first movie here, pretty incredible. It's a lot of dynamicism and a lot of details unfurled before your eyes in the first hour of the movie. It's really, really paced well. Another great frame shot of this crew. When you see the Millennium Falcon from the outside, you realize that it's actually not symmetrical, that the Millennium Falcon setup is actually asymmetrical, and the pod for the cockpit is actually off to the right. Of course, Obi-Wan senses it first. I guess he gets that idea because he senses the people on the space station from far away. One of the things I loved about this movie and basically every Star Wars movie in this original trilogy was that the odds against the heroes was so great. I mean, look at the size of this thing. I think that's unbelievable that these few characters have to go up against this Death Star, where they described in the expanded universe as having 1 million people on board. That's how big the Death Star is. And we have a ship full of 3 people, a Wookiee, and 2 droids. And we're going to try to undermine this empire. I mean, it's just against all odds. And you can't get more exciting than that. You really can't. The bad guys seem to always be a step ahead. And one other unique thing that was going on in this movie, in my eyes, was the fact that we got the bad guys' perspective. We have Darth Vader and Tarkin's perspective. It seems like, doesn't it seem like they're about half the movie so far, where we're really seeing the bad guys' plan, what they want to do, what they think they need to do. And we're seeing just the bad guys discussing things, which is, for me, was like a first in my world, to have it focused on the bad guys, at least in a movie. I think in some of our cartoons we had a focus on the bad guys, like in Thundercats we saw Mum-Ra. I think in G.I. Joe, you'd see Cobra Commander and stuff like that, maybe making some plans. But this was like the first series I could recall that we really dove deep into what the bad guys were up to. It's kind of funny that they got to call these guys in when Darth Vader's got force powers. And I guess they just, want to keep these guys employed, so they got to put them to work. It's almost like they have elements of RoboCop in this as well. 7, 8, 9 years before RoboCop. That's like the same stuff RoboCop would do. All the tech looks legit to me. For something a long time ago, far, far away, that could be it. I guess the one scene I never really, really enjoyed, as well as other scenes in this movie, was the garbage scene. Did you guys find that disgusting as well, where they're spending time in the garbage chute? And I just thought that that was gross, right? To be underwater. And then there's a scene where Luke is like rinsing out his hair from garbage juice. Pretty gross. Actually, right around here, it starts to get kind of funny when Leia gets involved because of the way Leia talks with these guys. It's pretty hilarious. She gives them orders and they don't like it, and Han doesn't like it. It's pretty funny. It kind of turns into a comedy, I think, for about 30 minutes. I mean, Luke's making promises. He has no idea. It's such a long shot to just get any of this accomplished that I guess he senses something through the Force that something might work if they follow this one thread. It's almost like the Doctor Strange thing. You know, there's 14,605,000 whatever possibilities that you lose, and then there's one that you win. I feel like that's the same thing in this Star Wars movie. There's like 14 million combinations where this goes wrong, and there's only one. There's only one where they run this way or they run that way and they swing from here to there, and Obi-Wan has to sacrifice himself at the right moment. I feel like there's only one way that this works. If they didn't have R2, it'd be all over. I mean, R2 in this gigantic place of 1 million people on board has found where the princess is. That's incredible. These guys got the goofiest helmets on, but I guess it kind of makes sense for this world. I like how the officers don't have that armor on, but they look like, you know, Germans from World War II. That, especially at the time that this came out, really, you know, only about 30 years after World War II, that it really gave you that underlying impression that these guys are the bad guys. Everyone knew Nazis were bad guys, and those people they were dressed like them, weren't they? And the term storm, that's where the term stormtrooper comes from, doesn't it? But the way that these stormtroopers look is an odd way. Not only that they're all white, but that they have a strange armor. An armor that doesn't even seem to work a lot of the time when they, especially, they can even get hit with like a punch and it doesn't work. The sets here just unbelievable. I actually love the way that they captured a couple of the laser bolts facing front. The next time I saw that happen was 20 years later, I think, in the Tom Green show on MTV. The beginning of the Tom Green show had some laser beams that faced the camera, but Star Wars was the first time I saw that, them trying to depict the way that looked. Obviously, that wasn't a real laser facing the camera, but it was a depiction of what a laser might look like, and it did look like that. Now, the idea is here that Han knows something like what he should maybe say because he has some kind of imperial history. That was always hinted in the expanded universe, that Han Solo was a imperial stormtrooper or soldier, like an officer for a short time until he got kicked out, or I forget what happened. They tried to show that a bit in the Solo movie. It didn't go over as well as it did in the expanded universe. I like how Luke says he's here with Ben Kenobi. That's not how we think that Leia knows of Obi-Wan, but Leia immediately knows Ben Kenobi. So she's familiar with all his aliases. I bet you Darth Vader kind of knew that if he ever saw Obi-Wan again, that would be the end of one of them, right? He was not going to let Obi-Wan get away. There was another instance just there of laser blasts facing the camera and being depicted in a method that they were directly facing the camera, which is pretty interesting and bold, a bold move. I mean, she's got nothing to lose. None of them really have anything to lose right here because they're dead if they don't get away. But she's already been scheduled for termination, so Princess Leia is dead meat if she doesn't get out of here. So that's why she's got nothing, absolutely nothing to lose. Plus, she knows she's got to get these plans back to base. Otherwise, not only her, but every other rebel will be dead. And if every other rebel dies, then there will be nobody left to oppose the Emperor. And the galaxy would just live under tyranny for like 1,000 years, probably. That's probably what the Emperor's plan is. And he's already got 20 years under his belt by this point. Don't forget, he's been ruling for 20 years, which seems kind of short, but in the Emperor's mind, it must be so secure. I bet you he feels like it's so secure. But this place always skeeved me out, this garbage chute. It's very realistic that when the stress level goes up and the tension gets higher, people get angrier and start snapping. People start yelling. That was realistic. I hated that there was water in here. I was like, ugh, this is disgusting. And then obviously when you see that eyeball, it's pretty gross. Yeah, as a kid, this is like one thing I did not want in my Star Wars movie, but I don't mind it anymore. I feel like every scene in this movie is 100% necessary at this at how many times that I've watched this. Yeah, because that creature knows the routine here. Once he hears that sound, the walls are about to squish him up. It's like they must have spent all their money on sets. They have so many different sets. It's unreal. So many Death Star sets, Millennium Falcon sets. They have Rebel Alliance sets, Tatooine Homestead sets. ship interior sets like X-Wing. Pretty incredible. I don't know if that's a set or like a life-size prop if we're talking about a cockpit for something, but an amazing, amazing feat to create all this stuff. Look at these control rooms, costumes, droid costumes, remote control droid operations like the mouse droids. 3PO is a pretty quick thinker. I always thought that the best droids, like R2, must have been made by a Jedi. And then when the prequels came around, it kind of secured that thinking where it showed that the dynamic, impressive intellectual droid of C3PO was created by Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. It kind of sealed the deal for me, and I believe 100% that some point in the past, whether it be 80 years before this movie started or 50 years or 5 years, maybe no, it must have been longer than that because it's before episode 1. But at some point I believe that R2 was created or reprogrammed by some kind of Jedi, because for that type of insight that R2 has to save his masters like at every turn, it's pretty impressive. He's like got Jedi intuition, but he's a droid. Only seconds to live. It is funny that C3PO hears it as like dying screams, but they're really just happy. Even C3PO with all the processing power of a 6 million language speaker can't determine what screaming versus laughter. Pretty funny. There's a few moments like that. I like when C3PO says that he's not able to tell a story well, but then he actually succeeds in telling a great story to the Ewoks in the third movie. So this is another great. I guess it's a model, but it's a set mixed with a model that just looks completely real to me. This Death Star laser laser control area is just, or the tractor beam control area. Very great, very cool set. And of course, these famous light patterns that you see behind Han here, it's just an off-copied pattern for like lightsaber stands and different Star Wars props. Take note of what Han is wearing there, and then what Lando's wearing at the end of Empire Strikes Back. It's quite hilarious that they're wearing the same thing at the end of the movie. That shows you a little bit of the monotony of being a stormtrooper. Lines like this, they're talking about the new PT-16. And talking about some BS. Kind of goes to show you that they're a little bit boring to be a stormtrooper. Probably mostly standing around. Still a lot of troopers to get by. That's kind of why they need a distraction. That's why they need a bit of a distraction by Obi-Wan, I think. Also to distract Darth Vader. Another great set, right? I guess this is a couple models combined or something, but this is just an incredible set, especially when they swing across soon. And I'll tell you, I love grappling hooks. I mean, me and my best friend Dominic, when I was a kid, we would always try to make a grappling hook out of something, try to swing across, a chasm or something. But this is where they actually do it, and they use the force to get the thing to hook. That's how I see it anyway. If this guy wasn't Luke Skywalker, that would not be working, but he is. And another great riff of the Star Wars theme. This is a scene that made me think that Jedi were kind of like ninja. If they could sneak around the Death Star, if Obi-Wan could sneak around the Death Star like that, I feel like he's like a ninja. Jedi are like ninja if they could do that. Very practical how they took the belts off of the stormtrooper gear and kept it for the tools inside. That's very practical, and most movies I don't think would do it that way. I really like that. This is where, as a first-time viewer, you're gonna get a lot of information about the past of these characters, but if you've seen it a bunch of times, you're just trying to pick up on stuff you haven't noticed yet. And what I'm noticing is that these lightsabers just look absolutely fantastic. I know that this is the original version, that they're not updated. There's actually a couple frames coming up that are going to look really poor because the Obi-Wan lightsaber is going to be facing the screen, and it's going to only appear as a small dot. But for the most part, it's a really excellent representation of this teal color that Obi-Wan has and this red laser beam light sword that Darth Vader has. It's got some great yellow flash on clashes, which is, I know, a lot of people in the lightsaber community will look for in these original movies. What color? Those are the bad scenes with the Obi-Wan lightsaber. But right there as well, we saw the flash on clash being that bright yellow that a lot of people try to capture now with their lightsaber toys. You might have the flash on clash be yellow to match the movie here. And this fight isn't as bad as I remember either. Just the moving around right there looked pretty cool to me. I know it's not It's not like a new age fight scene or anything, but it is what it is for this robotic madman and this 60-plus-year-old Jedi who's probably been, living in a cave and not really fighting too much. So he's just waiting for that moment. Another perfectly filmed scene here. Look at these, futuristic warlike effects. All very, very clean, and the proper time was spent on everything, it seemed like. As far as the story beats, like they never last longer than they have to. It's just to move the story forward. Everything's just to move the story forward. Story moves pretty fast from here. As soon as they meet up with the rebels, they basically go on the attack because they have no choice, because the Death Star arrives right at their front door on Yavin. This battle coming up is actually what they will base every year in Star Wars off of. It's kind of like the birth of Jesus in our world. This is what they base time off of in their entire calendar. So this would be the moments right before the Battle of Yavin, and that would be BBY, so before the Battle of Yavin, and after the Battle of Yavin would be ABY. Everything in Star Wars is based off of the moments coming up in the next, like, 6 hours of their life here, these characters' life. It's kind of interesting here how they made it off the Death Star, but only Princess Leia knows that they were allowed to leave the Death Star. And the other two, we're going to have to find that out soon. They really need R2 to strap in. Or maybe he can suction cup his feet to the floor. But unfortunately, that's all for the lightsabers in this movie. We actually don't see the lightsabers pop on anymore. I like how the TIE fighters swirl in this attack maneuver that is like a spin for their ship. It looks like it must make it pretty hard to fly and pretty hard to hit them. And the explosions, whoa. That did not need to be redone. That was fantastic explosion. The way they did those was they hung the camera underneath an exploding item, so that when the explosion happened, it looked like everything was coming toward you. And that's how it looked like it happened in space. So just like every other moment in this movie, the bad guys are one step ahead. They have essentially trapped the heroes in a back against the wall maneuver, because she has to go back to her base to analyze the R2 information. And at the same time, they're going to follow them, and they're going to have to fight immediately. Immediately, they're going to have to battle the empire's greatest weapon, with just a ragtag group. It's against all odds. It's against all odds. It's pretty incredible the way that it's set up with these. How many people are we down to? Three. We're down to 3 people, and they're well, no, because we're going to meet up with the rebels. So we have far more good guys than just 3. But it just seems funny that we have an entire empire, and then we have 3 people who are basically going to take them on. That's a great shot too. Going right underneath the planet to the moon, one of the moons of Yavin. This was a scene that was greatly enhanced in the special edition with far more. They kind of set the scene back a bit, had a bunch more X-wings and flights that were entering the system, and also more people scouting the system. And then on the interior here for the base, it's a far smaller story in this original edition because we don't have the commander Biggs dark lighters cut out of this entire thing, and a bunch of the crew members to Red 5 are cut out before they actually set off, before we see them in space. So all their ground scenes are cut out here, which is the one downside to this original version. This ending battle is a little bit weaker because of it. It's a little less pretty. Like this scene here was enhanced. We would have seen more. So I believe this guy's name is General Dodonna, I believe. And you know, the interesting thing here is only some of the ships that set off to do this task can actually attack the space station. I think the Y bombers, I don't even think can effectively attack the Death Star. They're kind of just there because to protect the other ships or to distract. But I think it's only the X-wings and maybe the A-wings, if any of them make it. Is there even A-wings in this attack? The X-wings, I think, might be the only ones that can destroy the Death Star. So we've only got a limited number of chances. This is some pretty interesting world building regarding Han here, how they're alluding to other things that he is indebted to. like they did with Greedo earlier. So they're kind of continuing that storyline like, hey, listen, this guy's still in debt and he needs money to pay the debt off. And he's not really part of this rebellion in the first place. So that's why he's not sticking around. And then obviously they try to make you forget about Han because Han has to come back in as a surprise in a few minutes. So they are going to say one more thing about Han basically between Leia and Luke right here, and then that's it until he comes back to help in a few minutes. Really cool story tactic, which really really works when you have all those distractions of those main battles that we see at the end of this Battle of Yavin. It's easy to forget Han when you're worried about all of our other characters and our just the entire state of the rebellion surviving the end of this movie. Unless the impossible happens, everyone here is going to die. And it becomes very apparent in a minute when the Death Star shows up. And they can tell that within 30 minutes, I think their time, about 10 minutes movie time, but they'll start the countdown. It's like so many movies have a countdown, don't they? This was one of my favorites. Usually I don't like a countdown in a movie, but it's necessary a lot of times to get things rolling. There might be a bank heist, so the cops are coming, or there might be a car race, so there's a time limit, or there might be some other restriction. In this movie, the time limit has to do with it's one of those end of world scenarios where at the end of the time limit, everybody's going to die. So the stakes are that high in this movie. And don't forget, at this time when the movie came out, no one knew that there was a possibility for any other movies to come out as a sequel to this. This was just a standalone movie called Star Wars. If the good guys didn't come through this at the end of this film, within just a few minutes, that could be it. That could be it for the good guys. Another scene right there on the exterior of the moon that was greatly improved by the special editions. It's just something that I don't care about that. I mean, although I'm a visual person, I like that visual. This is great. I mean, look, I could see the afterburners in these X-wings here. They added a bunch more, and they added more effects that were in the special edition. But you don't need that. This is perfect. Yeah, Red 9 is Porkins. Some of the other characters here you would have seen in the special edition, like this guy right here, the commander. He would have asked Luke if he was ready to fly this ship, and then Biggs would have come up and assisted him there. But we do have Wedge here. This is so cool when we see that the S-foils are unlocked, but in the special edition, you actually get to see the S-foils unlock and move, which is great. The S-foils are the X pattern in the X-wing there. You get to see them animated in the newer version. If you guys watch Disney Plus, you'll be able to see the newer version. But Luke has a little bit of a problem here because he's not used to flying this spacecraft. So they get a little worried about him, but it's just because I think he hasn't even done like a simulator with an X-wing, you know? He hasn't done. They also change a little bit of I think what Darth Vader says in that line there. I like that where he fired when Obi-Wan asked him to listen to his inner self, and it actually ended up doing some damage to the people on the inside. I like that depiction a lot. I think that's something that a lot of people miss when it comes to this. This was a scene that George Lucas was not happy with. There was a speed issue here where the ships did not look like they were moving fast at all. I see that. I think if you guys are watching this edition like I am right now, you are seeing that it's particularly crappy in certain TIE fighter scenes, certain dogfighting scenes, which is one of the reasons why it was updated. This was supposed to be like a World War II dogfight, and it didn't live up to what George Lucas wanted exactly. Another thing I found interesting was a lot of the scenes of R2-D2 in the back of the X-Wing. R2 seemed to have black markings instead of blue markings in these scenes. I guess it was a different version of R2, or was a different lighting system that they had for these shots. Yeah, I could tell that some of that dogfighting right there was unclear as to who was doing the firing and stuff, which is probably cleaned up a bit in the newer one. I'd say about 20 guns. Some of the towers. So there we go with our countdown. Every ship seems to have its own way it moves, which is cool. I like how in the Phantom Menace that was really brought into play with the pod racing scene. Every pod racer had its own way of sounding and its own way of moving. I think that George Lucas started that here. All the bad guy ships seem to move in a streamlined way, and the all the hero ships are salvaged, and some of them shake, or some of the pilots operate them differently. So we're basically losing like all our rebel ships. That's a very interesting interaction. They figured out what the rebels were doing, that there was a danger to this exhaust port. Now, a lot of this unused footage that was behind the scenes here, not used in this movie from these pilot characters, was actually used in Rogue One to digitally insert some of these pilots into Rogue One as if they were in some of the Rogue One battles previous to this storyline, which really, really made a lot of sense. That was a wonderful, wonderful part of Rogue One. Instead of doing the movies in the particular order of their chronological continuity, like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, what I wanted to do here was to do a commentary on where I thought everything started, which is right here in episode 4. So doing that one first, I'm going to do episode 5 next, episode 6. Then we're going to go back. We're going to do episode 1. Going to do episode 2 and episode 3 as a commentary, just like this. And then I'm going to do Rogue One. And then we're going to do the Disney sequel trilogy, episode 7, episode 8. I'll do by myself. And then I'm actually going to call in all my friends. We're going to do episode 9 together. Do episode 9 with Gabe and Harris as a watch for myself for the first time for episode 9. I haven't seen it all the way through. I saw a bit of the last half of it. So I'm going to go through all these and do a commentary. By the time we get to episode 9, we'll do a live show. Okay, so we'll have a party. We'll do a live show. We'll do episode 9. I don't know if it'll be a live show. It'll be a show with Harris and Gabe where we're watching it live, but I'm not sure if I'll have to record it or how that'll have to work at that point. Might have to record that show that way, but at least I get those guys in on it, and we'll kind of give our reactions in a different way than I would during this, because this I've seen so many times, and episode 9 I've not seen. Episode 8 is also going to be pretty interesting because I've only seen it in the theater and I haven't watched it at home yet, so that'll be something to talk about. Always love the cockpit of the X-Wing, cockpit of the TIE fighters, just looks so badass. This character, Wedge, becomes an incredible hero in the expanded universe who lives for a long time after this movie. And the looming threat of the Darth Vader trio here. Now, the Force is what I think is helping kind of put other people in the way of Luke Skywalker here, up until the point where Han Solo has to come back, or else it really would be lost. Oh, there's a rope attached to R2 I did not notice before. I wonder if that's part of the original one only. It looks like he's got a Polaroid that he's looking through. Polaroid camera. Everyone at the base has to be shitting a brick right now. They're probably like, we're about to die in 3 minutes. In 30 seconds, we're about to die. You may fire when ready. And I believe that this act of almost firing even had an even more detrimental effect as far as the explosion blast. It was probably made worse by that. What do you guys say? When Luke fires off his torpedoes here, I think due to the fact that the Death Star was also firing its laser, or about to fire, probably caused an even bigger explosion than it normally would. Because they had this thing like revved up. And there wasn't really any warning, that one dude who offered Tarkin that express ride out of there didn't even get a chance to pull up his taxi because they weren't expecting that. And the only survivor is Darth Vader, who took a lot of heat after this point from his master and from basically everybody else in the Empire, if you guys check out the Darth Vader comic books, you'll see all the trials and tribulations that Darth Vader had to go through because of his failure here. He was kind of relegated from the right-hand man of the Emperor to something lesser. And the Emperor was actually trying out new new apprentices, or at least tossing around the idea in the Darth Vader comics. Darth Vader had to undermine those other apprentices to continue to win favor of Lord Sidious. And I always loved this yellow jacket that Luke has. I wanted that jacket so bad. And I eventually did find that jacket like on eBay, but I kind of no longer want it. But at the time, you know, when I was a teenager, I was like, oh, if I could just get that yellow leather jacket, I would be cool. If I could just have a jacket like that. And I never saw a jacket that was like a leather jacket that was yellow or whatever that color is. Like I always called it yellow. Maybe it's like a cream color. But here's where Chewie doesn't get a medal. I guess she only considers the captain of the ship important. But 3PO's all oiled up. He's looking good. Princess Leia's all jeweled up. And the interesting thing here is they are doing this ceremony right in the temple at the one of the moons of Yavin, I believe it is, where they were just launching from. And this is a former Jedi Academy, which is something that just came out, you know, not just, but something that came out in the expanded universe, where Luke Skywalker trained some of his new pupils at that academy that also housed the tomb of Freedon Nad, I believe, or was it EXAR KUN? One of the two that overtook one of his students in the story following Return of the Jedi in the expanded universe book. So, you know, there's lots of Star Wars besides the movies. If anyone's interested in the comic books and stuff like that, you can always check them out. And the different books, some of my favorite books are like New Jedi Order books, or the Legacy of the Force series, where Luke is about 50 years old. Those are great. And all right, that's about the end of Star Wars. Star Wars that became Episode 4, but in this version that I've been watching, it was just called Star Wars. This is the original version. I do suggest that you go check out this original version if you have not already, and follow along with my commentary for my own personal insights and opinions on this movie and the next one, which is going to be Empire Strikes Back. I also have the OG version of The Empire Strikes Back, the original version, and I'll be watching that next with all of you. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and come back for the next version of this video in the series, which is going to be about Empire Strikes Back. We're going to be watching that one. We're going to do Return of the Jedi after that, all the original versions. Then we're going to step it up to the HD versions of, you know, episodes 1, 2, and 3. Well, thank you for checking out this video, and I will see you in the next commentary